Everyone was so shocked by it that it kind of caused a conversation. I think the coolest part for me was I had people reaching out who I had no idea were suffering from hair loss, saying like, I would have never been, brave enough to be open about this. Caught traction and it spread so much farther than I expected it to. And I feel like that's how, I ended up raising so much money, just being honest and open with what I was going through. It made me just so proud and like honored that people cared enough to donate money and just pay attention to the cause.
Well, welcome. I'm excited to introduce a new friend to Wigs for Kids, a friend that has gone beyond the call of helping hand that we have in people who donate hair, donate money. But she's absolutely done something that has helped us fundraise even beyond her own personal goal. Let me introduce you to Miranda. Miranda, welcome to our Wigs for Kids show. We just are so happy that you're with us.
Thank you. So my name is Miranda Singer. I'm 22 and I just graduated from the University of Minnesota and I have androgenetic alopecia. So having androgenetic alopecia, I don't have any illness or sickness. I noticed my hair was really thinning and starting to get some bald spots in about October of last year. So I went to a few doctors, they tried the hormone shots, they tried a bunch of different stuff, nothing worked. So I got the diagnosis based off of the patterns and the spots that I had. So I'm not sick. It just means that through my hormones and my genetics that my hair was not able to grow like a normal person's would.
Well, let's roll into this fundraiser. Fundraising for a charity has been very, very difficult over the last 2 or 3 years because of the pandemic and all the other issues that have transpired, and we don't want to go into that list. But in turn, to fundraise, it really takes now a focus on an organization or a cause. It takes the ability to really call out your peers, your friends, your relationships. How does a college student with homework and social life and, dealing with the hair kind of take us through the story of what happened when you started to look at those spots and they were starting to bother you or starting to, make you feel like you needed to do something, your next action steps, and then your proactive steps into a fundraiser that is now going to help a multiple amount of kids. Share with us that story.
When I first found out that I had alopecia, I was, like most people, very devastated. I'm 22. I wasn't expecting to lose my hair. I'm a natural redhead, so hair has always been like a big identifier for me. I told myself that the day that I felt like I had to wear the wig because I was not okay showing bald spots to the public, that was the day that I was gonna shave my head. For me, I would rather just cut my losses and not have to continue to see hair fall out. I also felt like for me, I really wanted to believe that bald was beautiful and bald was okay, but it's hard to do that when you're not living that. So I kind of wanted to just for myself, push myself to do it and like live that life. So I decided I was going to do that. And that was something I would have never done if I didn't have the diagnosis. I would never shave my head. So I think that was one of the big things that helped with the fundraising, is that I was very open and honest about everything that was going on, and having the big event be me shaving my head being something that's so, not like normal for me. I think that got a lot of people's attention. So it all started with an Instagram post and a Facebook post. And I just said that, I'm shaving my head a month from today and I'm hoping to raise money through it. So if you click the link, it'll take you to my personal fundraising page and, feel free to give whatever you can. And I really did not expect much. I expected, my family, my close friends, the people who I had already been open about everything with. But I remember going to bed and then waking up the next morning to 25 emails from Wigs for Kids being like, you received a donation, you received a donation. So I was scrolling through those and it started popping up with names that I didn't know. Everyone was so shocked by it that it kind of caused a conversation. I think the coolest part for me was I had people reaching out who I had no idea were suffering from hair loss, saying like, I would have never been, brave enough to be open about this. And like, I sent it to, my community of people who I talk about my hair loss with. So I think it caught traction and it spread so much farther than I expected it to. And I feel like that's how, I ended up raising so much money, just being honest and open with what I was going through. It makes people want to support you and want to help reach your goals, which was it made me just so proud and like honored that people cared enough to, donate money and just pay attention to the cause.
And you had a goal and you superseded that goal. Tell us about your goal.
I didn't want to aim too high because I didn't want to not reach it. So I think I started at 5,000. It was not too high. And then within the first 2 days, I passed it and I was like, what now? So then I did some math, just thinking about if a wig costs average 1,800, I wanted to do an increment of that. So I kept increasing it. I would just give little updates on social media, just being raise the goal, thank you all for everything you've done to be able to raise it. It just kept coming. And even the other day, I got an email that I received a donation and I was like, I don't even know how people are still finding it, but yeah, it kept growing. And, it was really special to see people who I hadn't talked to for years. And then I see their name pop up. And just knowing that an event like this just really, I feel brings people together and even brought new people into my life. I've met so many people through this fundraiser who have experienced hair loss. When I first got diagnosed, I knew no one. I have no one in my life who has experienced hair loss or done anything like this. So finding those people was probably besides, being able to raise that much money and help so many people, that was also a really big bonus that came from it.
And your fundraiser ended tapping out at?
I believe it was $8,000.
$8,120. You said a magic word, and I'm gonna zoom in on that because I think it's so important. You're precious. You have a beautiful personality. Your parents,
thank you.
Kudos to them. You got a beautiful face, and we respect so much of that because that's part of your community. But that's what it created, a community that drew together. But there's a halo effect that takes place. The halo effect in marketing is when you drop the pebble in the brook and it continues to create the halos out to the shore. The reality is that halo touched people that were not just in your inner community, but they then shared it and it went to their communities and their communities. And the story, because it was sincere and it was transparent and it was giving forth, your efforts to help others, it touched heart. And you created a bigger community even for yourself. And you created a bigger community for us too, because many people that I'm sure that you touched didn't know about Wigs for Kids, even though it's been around for 40 years that we're celebrating our 40th year anniversary this year. So tell me about your community. How have they now responded to you after you hit over the goal and you've told your story? Tell us about that.
When I originally shaved my head, I was, extremely nervous, was shocked when it happened. I had my parents come up, I had some friends, and I just did it in my apartment because I just wanted to be around people that I love when I did it. And at first, it's this big event and, everybody's super kind and they notice it and they congratulate you. And it's this, you feel really good about yourself. But then, that dies down because it's now a norm for me to, not have hair. So it's dealing with, still feeling confident with the choice that I made. The compliments and the energy is not always there. But I think the biggest thing for me is that I was really worried that I was going to get treated differently because I didn't have hair. In my mind, when you don't have hair, people assume you either are sick or, it's a style choice. And for me, it really wasn't either of those. So kind of dealing with that identity crisis almost where, I'm almost like, should I be bald? Because, I'm not sick. I'm not doing this by choice, but this is who I am. And kind of juggling that, I think having the support system that I have of my amazing friends and family really did help, just validating me and knowing that I am lucky enough to have a wig and choosing the days that I want to wear it, choosing the days I don't, but choosing that for myself rather than for how other people are going to react. And knowing that when I'm, out in public and maybe some people are staring because that's inevitable, because people, like to look at things that aren't familiar to them. Knowing that like the people that I surround myself around have my back and support me and think of me the exact same, they know that the Miranda that had hair is the exact same as the Miranda who doesn't. She just looks a little different. Having that validation from people around me has really helped throughout the process, even when, the excitement isn't necessarily still there.
A long time ago, coined a phrase when I started Wigs for Kids, because I was a hairdresser, and it was interesting because I was making beautiful people beautiful. And when the day that my niece lost her hair and went through the process of that situation very similar to yours, and she had the same energy, that's why I was so attracted to this story, because when she went through her gymnastic competition, which tested the wig, the very first wig of Wigs for Kids 40 years ago, it was interesting because when she gave me the thumbs up after doing the last, exercise, and I heard that voice within me that the Spirit said to me, I'm going to take you now from the talent of your ability to make beautiful people beautiful, and now make people beautiful inside and out. Now, at that time, I wasn't 100% sure what that all meant, but as the 40 years has unfolded and people like Miranda has come to the surface and blossomed, it's amazing, because you said something in one of the things that I read, is that the wig early on gave you the confidence to be able to take and shave your head. And I'd like you to share a little bit about that, because the reality is the wig, you now have the choice. You have the choice to wear it. There's some girls and guys that just may not have that desire or confidence, or they're so confident in the hair that becomes part of them. But you found kind of a combination of this. Tell us a little bit of how that transpired.
The first day that I went and got fitted for my wig, it was blonde. It didn't look like me. So, I tried to keep an open mind. But when I went and really got the finalized wig and, had it styled and stuff, I honestly left the wig shop crying. It was this happy, sad feeling where I was like, wow, this is a little weird how much it looks like my real hair. But also that realization that, this is going to be my hair for the rest of my life. And that's what I'm going to have to, cope with at some point. I didn't understand enough what was going on and the way that it would affect me at the time. But when I wear my wig, I feel so confident because I look exactly like I used to look. It's almost scary. The color match is so insane that nobody would ever know that I was wearing a wig. It just makes me feel normal again. No one's questioning anything. No one's, asking me my story, which I love sharing. But, there's certain days that you just want to be able to, go to the grocery store and not have anyone be like, I wonder what's going on there. I love that aspect of it, but I also love that I'm able to express myself and share my story through not wearing my wig, because being bald, it turns heads, it asks questions, it makes people curious, because it's not the norm. So I do love that aspect of it too, because I feel like there's so much educating that needs to be done about alopecia. A lot of people, when I first announced that I had it, had no idea what that was. And still, when I tell people, they're always like, what is that? So being able to be someone who educates through just what I look like is very powerful to me. But, there's some days that I want to just feel like my old self. And those are the days that, I put my wig on and, that goes away. And I'm able to just relax knowing that I'm just Miranda.
How did you hear and find out about Wigs for Kids?
So I became public with, alopecia, and I in college was in a sorority, and a lot of girls, have gorgeous long hair, and they all were like, let us donate our hair. You know what I mean? That's such an easy thing that we can do to support you. It'll grow back. It's not a big deal. And I was reading, your story about how this whole thing got founded. I was reading some of the kids' stories, looking at the pictures, and I'm a very firm believer that, things are put in our path that we are meant to experience. There's nothing that we can't handle that we're given. And I just knew somehow I wasn't sure of the logistics, but I knew that this was put in my path to, either educate or help someone or do something with it bigger than myself. So I immediately just emailed the email on the website, and I was like, I have some friends who want to donate. How does this all work? I really want to support the organization. What can I do? I think the thing that drew me in the most was that, as hard as it is losing your hair at 22, I'm lucky enough that I, felt confident with who I was as a person and, really had a strong identity, where I feel like kids, they're in the process of figuring that all out, and they have enough worry, about that with their hair. So like, I can't even imagine what it's like losing your hair that young. And I applaud, all the kids who are able to stay strong and go through that process. I figured if a wig can give me confidence at 22, I can't even imagine what it would do to someone who's, 8 years old or 13 years old, really going through that pivotal point where they're figuring out who they are and, worried about what other people think a lot more than maybe I was at 22. So I figured if there was a way that I could, support kids finding themselves and feeling confident, because, confidence is it's so hard these days. No one's confident anymore. So if I could help with that, that was something that, like, that's what made me realize this is what I have to do. Like, this is the bigger thing that I was given this diagnosis for. So, I grew up luckily in a home that, I have 2 amazing parents, 2 amazing brothers. And we were always taught that, whatever you have, a part of it can be given. I have always been like very interested in philanthropy, just because I think I get the most joy out of helping people. I love helping people. It makes me feel fulfilled. When you have situations put in your path to find a way to make it positive for both yourself and someone else, it's a win-win, and like, even just the messages that I received from other people who are experiencing hair loss, whether it be from alopecia or, I had some people reach out who have eating disorders who, lost their hair due to that, and they wear a wig and they didn't know anybody else wore a wig. So even those sort of interactions, that makes it all worth it, because not only can you feel pride for helping other people, but also through paying it forward and through, doing something for someone else, you just get to meet more people and, experience more connections with people who you have stuff in common with. And when you're going through something hard, I think, those connections can really make the difference and make you feel, less alone, more seen, and just more important.
You did that. You really did that, because you gave people connection to feel that community, that I'm not different. I'm not an orphan outside of the world of the other people. And you gave people the opportunity to give, not from a fundraising, hey, the bending the arm, give type of thing. And you gave the people the opportunity to show their love. Sometimes we don't have the opportunity or ability or platform to show our love to someone who we do love. Even like in your case, you're going to be loving people you don't even know, especially the girls that are going to be in your hair pieces that you've provided the funds for. So I just want to thank you so much for you. And I want to thank your parents for them in producing you. Your faith has produced the benevolence that you have. You're really a precious young lady. And man, I'll tell you what, whoever sits in your therapy sessions are going to be well cared for. I know that.
Thank you so much. To anyone watching, that there is nothing too small to give, even if it is a simple compliment, a message, whatever it is. Some of the smallest, acts of kindness, whether it be someone checking in on me at this point where, I've gotten used to it, or someone, reaching out to me when I first posted, those gestures meant just as much to me as the donations did. And knowing that no matter what your situation is, or no matter what you're going through, anything you can give will make someone's day and will, inspire others to do the same. Because it really is, it's a snowball effect. One person giving, the next person, it just keeps going. And so much change can happen from just one little gesture.